Hello everyone, welcome to CryptoPi. In today's video, I want to talk about Avalanche, and I think it's a sleeping beauty for the upcoming alt season, provided the alt season happens. However, quite a few metrics have already said it is alt season already, and we do see some gains on some of the alts that they have been performing quite well compared to Bitcoin in the last 2 months. However, the crash which happened in alts before the 2 months has basically blocked a lot of guys who entered at a high, at the high of this cycle, which was the mini alt season, and now everyone is waiting for a proper alt season since Bitcoin is nearing to its end of the cycle. So what do we have here? I have 3 charts. One of them is the dominance of Avalanche in USDT pair, and Avalanche in Bitcoin pair. In this analysis, I want to take a slightly different approach to use Bitcoin halving cycle and see how it affects the altcoin. In this case, we will discuss about Avalanche. So in the past, after Avalanche had launched in the cycle of 2020, in 2021, which was the post-halving year, that's when we really saw Avalanche make one of the greatest gains in its all-time history. So basically here, Bitcoin dominance for Avalanche started rising up until February. So from January until February, it stayed pretty high. That was one of the all-time high at that particular time. And then we saw somewhat a downtrend in its dominance until mid of the year. And once August was passed, we saw quite a rally in its dominance. Same goes slightly for the mid-cycle year. So that was the year after the halving, after the post-halving year. And here we did see a drop initially in Avalanche, and then we saw somewhat a pullback on the long side in its dominance. However, dominance did not break its all-time high until here. Since then, we have been seeing a downtrend in mid-cycle year, in pre-halving year, up until 2023. We did see last year the rally, and if you look at crypto Twitter, a lot of people were bullish that this is going to basically break the all-time high of 2022. However, it did not happen. We started seeing the downtrend, and now we are in 2025, which is again a post-halving year. What I see here is that at this particular line, at this particular order block, let's mark this one, which was in August 2021. It seems to me that this was tested in 2023. And what is here is basically the break of structure at this point. And my guess was that Avalanche dominance would come somewhere in this region, although it did go further down. And it did not go much lower. If it would have not sustained this one, my next understanding would have been that it would have gained support at this level. However, here we do see, if we have to think about order blocks, we do see, this one. Let's move this to the right place. Yeah, good. In between these two candle, or the open and close of this candle between these two lines, that is basically the bearish order block for which has been not mitigated since 2021. So it does make sense if you go from the theory of order block that Avalanche dominance would reach here and then find a support, a strength to go back up. What has happened in this year is that it did mitigate this order block. It stayed there, had its accumulation period. It broke through it. It broke through this particular structure. Again, this is a bearish order block, and we see it broke through it. However, there was not much strength, because if there was a strength, it would have just shot with a very big candle. But since there was not much strength, we did see a pullback, again testing the old support level, or you can say the order block, which is between these two lines. And we can, in some sense, understand that this is more like a double bottom. So retesting again this level, basically taking in all the orders which were here. what we saw in the last week in September, Avalanche dominance basically broke this structure, the previous structure over here, this order block. And this basically tells me that somehow Avalanche is a sleeping beauty for the upcoming alt season. We would, if we have to compare it with Avalanche in USDT pair, this is where it has found its strength. So on June 26th, June 22nd, let's see here, this was June 22nd when it first tested, or when the accumulation period started. And if you look at AVAX in USDT, this is when the accumulation period started. And here it made a higher low compared to the previous one. And since then, it has been going upwards. Let's look at in the BTC pair, the same story again. On June 22nd, we do see the accumulation period begin for AVAX in its BTC pair, which was probably not to the lowest, but if you have to compare, it comes to if you have to compare with the 2020 season, here it comes very close to this particular order block over here. Right, comes very close to this one. If I draw under line over here, it will be basically same explanation how we have it for AVAX dominance. Now let's look at all these three charts at the same time. And what I see here, this one, I want to put it AVAX dominance, here AVAX USDT, and here we have Bitcoin, AVAX and Bitcoin. One of the pairs which are shown or which can be observed in all of these three charts in some way has a confluence is if I draw a line, a trend line from here starting going upwards. Oops. Not this. Starting upwards like this way. And if we assume this is another trend line, which is going like this way, seeing a break of this structure, which is going upwards trend line, when this formation happens, usually the patterns basically tell that this is more likely to be bullish. The same thing can be observed over here. We see upwards trend, and this, if it is this way, then this breaking out shows the strength. Yeah. However, I'm not very convinced if the trend line technical analysis works the best, but it's still one additional confluence which can be observed when it comes to Avalanche. Now coming to just the USD pair, what could be the price estimates for this season? We have seen that Bitcoin has been going up since last 3 years, and altcoins, even though they have the short rallies every other mini altcoin season, we do not see up until now that altcoins have basically reached some level like in the past, where we would have seen a couple of 100% gain. So if starting from here up until this one, this was 1300% gain. We have not seen that, and probably that is one of the reasons why a lot of people are disappointed that alt season has not arrived. But given that Ethereum, we saw Ethereum dominance has bottomed in one of the previous videos. Now we see that Avalanche dominance has not bottomed, but it has found a support. And we see that Bitcoin is ending it's near to its cycle end. Usually when Bitcoin is very near to its cycle end in the post-halving year, we see an altcoin rally. This is obviously based on the historical observation, and this can be completely wrong. And this would be a hypothesis which we can say, all right, it did not work out. However, if you just look at the historical observation, this to me sounds like an upcoming rally for Avalanche. Let's say the bearish estimates for Avalanche for the upcoming alt season, I would put it somewhere in this zone. Here is a bearish order block. You can call it resistance or whichever terminology you feel like using it. And considering the gain from this point up until the bearish order block, it's still 150%. Not as great as this one, but if you would want to take it from the cycle bottom, which happened over here, it is almost 730%. Now, if we see some liquidity going in the altcoins, not just Ethereum, but also in, let's say, the top 10, apart from Ethereum, Solana, if we see some liquidity flowing to, I don't know if Avalanche is on top 10, but let's say in one of the top coins, so top 25 or top 30, then it is quite possible that we might see Avalanche going from here up until this one. The reason for me to mark this level is here we have another order block, because this is the point when the downtrend had begun. These two levels are pretty strong. We saw that at this level of $60 to $68. This was when the mini all season had reached up to in 2024. The price had reached to $60 to $65, and then we saw a strong pullback here. For this season, for this cycle, this was my bearish estimate over here, starting from 70 up until 80. If the liquidity flows in quite well, I would imagine that we might reach up until here, starting from 94 till somewhere around 100. Now, why do I not go for higher estimates? Because if we look at Ethereum, ETH/USDT, Ethereum rather than USDT, Ethereum in BTC pair, Ethereum made its all-time high in 2017, and since then, in every alt season which we want to pick up, you can pick any of them in 2021, the late 2021, 2022, we keep seeing that Ethereum's strength is reducing, and same can be applied for other big crypto, which are mid-level market cap altcoins. So if I want to compare it with AVAX in its BTC pair, although here it was alt season, it did not even cross the high in 2022. So to me, if the bearish scenario for how far AVAX can reach, it's somewhere at this level, which corresponds to probably the first order block, then this would be the one. And I think if it goes higher than this, of course, it will make a lot of people very happy. But to me, to just compare it with how Ethereum has been performing, it's quite likely that other altcoins might follow the same in the next cycle. Ethereum is one of the oldest altcoins, and Avalanche is one of the newest one. It has seen only one big alt season. And for this season to happen something like this, perhaps if the liquidity flow is pretty strong, it could go at this level. But it is quite unlikely, because we do have many other new altcoins where the liquidity is flowing in. We have Solana, we have Sui, there is Polkadot. It doesn't matter what the fundamentals are. In alt season, all fundamentals are ignored, and price action is in exploratory phase, and it just goes higher up until Bitcoin decides to make a reversal and the whole crypto goes into a bear market. So for conclusion, I would say the bullish scenario would be somewhere in this range between 90 and 100, or let's say mid-bullish scenario is 90 and 100, and the extreme bullish scenario could be one of this level. If I were to really pick up a level, I would pick up somewhere between 116 and 125. The reason for picking up this one is, again, we see a bearish order block from where the downtrend really began in 2021. So that would be all for today's video. If you like the content, then do hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.